This is gonna be a lot of fun.
There we are. Oh, there you go. Look how big my fucking head is. Holy.
Yeah. Do you have a black background and a black turtleneck?
Yeah, I didn't even realize I'm wearing a black hoodie and a black background. It just looks like a floating head.
Yeah, it's a great aesthetic. I like it. Yeah, it's gonna.
I look very much like I look like I'm launching a new iPhone.
You do.
It's not going to distract my ADHD at all.
Like, what can I say about technology? Like just like one of those.
Steve Jobs joins the program.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, the ghost of Steve Jobs, the now fatter Steve Jobs. I'm fine. Pancreas is all good.
I was just gonna say that. Oh man, I saw him at like Kings game in box seats, right? Like, I don't know, it wasn't right before he died. It was probably like within the last year before he died. And I was like, my friend's was like, is that Steve Jobs? And I looked and I was like, no, that guy looks like shit. There's no upside to the story, but it was just like, I didn't think it was him. And then I was like, oh, he died. Yeah. Forgot about the whole.
The guy, he only ate fruit. Isn't that correct? He just ate fruit.
That's some weird diet.
Couldn't have helped, right? Like,
the fuck is like? There comes a point at which you're like, everyone's like, this guy's a genius. I'm like, depends on the day you catch him, I guess. You know, it's like it's like Isaac Newton was a genius when he was like figuring out gravity and shit, but when he was sticking needles in his eyes to touch his brain, he wasn't such a genius. He was like, "Oh, you're fucking rich." Like, all right, that's the genius. Yeah, no, he does that.
Yeah, have him like speak in a social environment and see how that works, right? Like, oh,
yeah, exactly. Just make eye contact. Can you make eye contact? He's like, nah,
it's over.
It's not even capable. Not even capable of making eye contact. Gravity is making him look down. Anyway.
Perfect. This is perfect. We like to start off with a couple sort of warm-up sort of non sequiturs. I call them
casual combo.
Sometimes it's an excuse for me to ask those like hand grenade questions that are really conspiracy theories, but usually it's just silly. So this is just a warm-up one. So our Swifty, are you good to go? Are you fine with heading?
Oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. Hey, can I language wise, are you you're cool with whatever?
Oh please. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Swear away.
I was about to say who's who, but it tells names here.
We have a shirt that says we say cunt in this house.
Yeah, so, my girlfriend.
Oh, nice.
My fiance is Australian, and she one time I said the C word, and she's like, hey, we say cunt in this house. It was
like yeah, it's part of it's just a bridge word there. It's like
yeah.
Oh yeah. If someone calls you buddy, it's like we need to step out and have a fight. But it's like, you're a cunt. Yeah, but that's a legit
in Canada. Hey, buddy in Canada is like the best. Hey, buddy, what's up, bud? Like that's if you call someone buddy in Canada, you mean it in Canada. Like that's my buddy.
Yeah,
nice.
Wow,
the whole South Park episode about that. Don't be my buddy, guy. Don't call me guy, buddy. Like it's just,
yeah.
It's so nice in Canada.
Yeah, still true.
Some of us. Oh yeah. Well, it depends. There's parts of the country that have gone completely batshit insane, but most of it's still okay.
Truck drivers with the horns, maybe not so much.
Oh my God, that's something else. It's typical Canadians, right? Like even when we had like some sort of like overthrow the government riot, it just turned into a party with like a bouncy castle. I'm not kidding. There was a bouncy castle. Like that's not. Look, I don't know a lot about revolutions, but I don't think in France in the late 1700s they had a bouncy castle.
Yeah, typically.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, typically not part of the revolution.
French.
Orson Welles joined us. The French in general there. I mean, is that just a cliche?
Oh, the French, they're so far away that you wouldn't even know. Like everyone thinks that like most of Western Canada doesn't speak French at all. You're supposed to in all the government buildings. You legally have to. So a great comedian by the name of Brent Butt used to have this joke. He's like, if you get pulled over in BC, he's like, insist that they speak French. He goes, because none of the cops speak French. He goes, it'll take them so long, they just let you go. But they have to. They have no. So even when you're on a plane here, everything has to be in English or French. But the further east you get, the more francophone it gets. So once you get to like Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, stuff like that, it becomes quite French. Labrador is like that too, but I don't speak a word of it. I just look down and mumble.
You name these places.
Like, yeah, Labrador, Quebec, talk like that.
I did learn that Acadia or Cajun is a bastardization of saying Acadian. I'm an Acadian, and people are like, Acadian? Okay, whatever. Like as they moved south.
Well, and they all came over at the same time. So they're Cajun, they're Acadian French and then our French came over. And they were like, we will keep this country. Eh? And the English are like, I didn't think so, you bastards. And then they fought it out. And then what ended up happening was it just all kind of got contained in one place, and now they won't shut up about it. But it's pretty good. Like, whenever I go to Montreal, I don't speak very much French. So whenever I go to like Quebec or Montreal, I always just look down and mumble. Like I just said, and people think I'm French.
Like the kids in the hall.
They go into no. And they're like, oh, that guy's clearly he's grumpy in French.
Yeah.
The older I get, the better it'll work.
I'm picturing the kids in the hall cab driver from the beginning of Brain Candy.
100%. That'd be about right.
I don't know. I feel like I want to skip this anyways, but I wrote it down, so I'll say it anyways. Are Swifties just mainstream juggalos?
You know what the thing is I personally find juggalos more attractive because I think if you commit to, first of all, getting away with naming your cola that, and second of all, does she have her own cola, like Tay Cola or whatever the fuck?
So
yeah,
I don't.
Not yet.
The thing with Swifties is it's like. I mean, this is a moment in time where there's this kind of like group of people who are all, because that's just Taylor Swift's phenomenon shows you how bad the world is, because it's like people are just like anything to get out of everyday life. And they're like, what about this lady who's the daughter of a hedge fund manager who had hundreds of millions of dollars before she started her career? She's one of us. No, she's not, you fucking proletariat idiot. But that's just the way it was. But you know what? More power to him. I mean, I'm happy with it. I'm glad. I mean, as a Canadian comedian, I'm so far outside of show business that like I'm just on the periphery of it anyway. So the idea of selling one stadium, let alone $1 billion worth of tickets, is so foreign to me. Like, you could be the most famous person in Canada, and there aren't enough people in Canada to sell as many tickets as she sells in California. So it's like that.
It's fair.
But so more power to them. Go Swifties, go. I don't know. I guess it's confusing the NFL. That's what I like. So
that is.
I don't know what to do.
The NFL's on its back foot already because they're just getting over. Do we kneel? Do we like? Do we?
Yeah.
Right. Am I racist? Am I not? And then they're just like, what the fuck is this? Like, you're gonna thrust, and we've got new people showing up to parties. Like, yeah, it's.
Imagine if she starts kneeling whenever she comes to visit him, just to fuck with everyone. So she just comes out. He's just standing on the sideline. She just comes over, just kneels, and everyone's like, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" She's a blonde white lady. I don't know what to do. Okay. Her and Kaepernick are just having sandwiches at a bus stop somewhere in 3 years. Sorry, I just got that image. They're both like, "What did we do wrong?" I was like, "Well, you went away against the establishment."
Well, we had a conspiracy theory last episode that she's the reincarnation of the high priestess of the Church of Satan. So,
she died the same
that's nice.
89.
See, that would get me on board because I'd be like, "When are the right?"
Yeah.
When are the sacrifices, Taylor? When are the sacrifices?
I will do our legendary Friday show intro, which I apologize, Nancy, you'll have to sit through. Before we get to that, I want to ask one more question, and then I'll interrupt you with the show intro button. So, the Beatles released that AI song, and I'll introduce you in a second, Simon. The Beatles did that AI song that was completed by the AI. What incomplete work do you most want to see an AI finish?
The Great Wall, because I think
you said the Great Wall.
Yes. The Great Wall. I just want to see it try and put it together. Just a bunch of Roombas out there shoving bricks around.
Okay.
That is a fantastic answer.
I had not gone with physical space. You know what, Alan? Our answers suck. I'm pressing the button.
Y'all let me in this damn house.
Should we hit record?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. All right, you ready?
I am ready. Are you recording?
Yes. All right. Well, you want to start a show?
Let's start a show.
That podcast is filling your head with garbage.
No offense taken there.
Well, it sounds like none taken.
Ask your mama, she'll say the same thing. I got all the ways, I just ain't got the means. Boom.
to the Friday interview, Thanksgiving Eve interview edition of Not Taken. I had to rush it, damn it, in front of company. That was top 10 worst. I apologize. Where every week my good friend Alan brings us a list of headlines and we talk them at you. This week with special guest Simon K. I got other things to say, but I don't normally have someone in front of me. Alan, do I do the Friday button here?
Sure, we can do the Friday button here.
Do the Friday button. Head on over to fungiblenuntakens.com or trumpgags.com to join the Patreon.
So, another Friday is upon us. What'll you be doing, Smithers? Something gay, no doubt. What? You know, lighthearted, fancy-free. Mothers, lock up your daughters. Smithers is on the town.
Exactly, sir.
Exactly, sir. We are all out of order and out of sorts, but that's fine.
It's fine.
We as I said very hastily, it's probably worth repeating. Go to you can find the Patreon by looking for None Taken under Patreon, but that's confusing. Just go to trumpgags.com. That's the redirect. It was only $12 and it was available, and it'll take you to our Patreon where you can sign up. Shout out to newest sign up James. Thank you, sir. And Alan, I'm so excited. I've been so excited about this ever since you agreed to come on. Comedian Simon King is here. We have questions to ask you, and then, if you will, we'd like to go through our riffing on the headlines and have your take on a handful of news topics. Alan,
what is up, everybody? What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Happy Friday. The weekend's here. Have a can of beer. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Also, don't forget, support the people that support us. SlickIsDigital.com for all your SEO and marketing needs.
He'd be like, you had Simon King on, you had new listeners, and you didn't mention Slick It's Digital. God damn it. So, okay, sorry. Well, we haven't really said anything that allowed you to. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I got really confused as to what was going on, and I was just holding my breath in case I had to do one of those crazy long things. And just like faint and pass out and have an aneurysm, and you're like, "Oh, great, we killed Simon King." I'm like, "That, no one cares." Both of my fans will be. Yeah, both of my fans will be heartbroken. They'll share a cab to my funeral.
That's what Fritz said. Fritz was like, "You guys can't die. I can't lose a fan. I don't need this."
Yeah.
That is what he said. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you, Alan? Did you have anything you wanted to say, or should we just get into?
No, I think we should let our guest introduce himself. Tell us a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. So that was the first question. It's right here. You saw the sheet, Alan. So I'll do it. Fine. Simon,
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Where are you from? I understand England and Canada, but that seems vague. Tell us about yourself. Tell the listeners about yourself.
I was born in. I'm just thanking God you guys aren't piloting a plane right now with the amount of crossover. Well, you're supposed to pull the landing gear shift. I mean, if you don't know, what
for a reason.
You throttle up engine 4, and then what are we going to do? Engine 3 is not throttle up; it's just going into a mountain. You guys bicker like an old couple. I love it. I was born in England, in Sheffield, in the north of England, and then I grew up. I moved to Canada when I was 5, and I grew up on the west coast of Canada, and I've lived in Vancouver on and off, having lived in Los Angeles and London and stuff since. I've lived in Vancouver proper since 2000, I think, and I've been a comedian since then. So I started stand-up comedy, but I grew up performing on stage when I was like 7. I was an actor and stuff, and then I did like a bunch of different stuff. And when I was 22, I found stand-up comedy, and I was like, this is what I do. It seems the least amount of effort to monetize swearing and drinking, and so that's kind of how I do it. And I have managed to avoid a real job since. So it's almost 24 years now. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, nice. I've been to Vancouver. It's a great city.
It's
really
a nice one, yeah. It's all right. Yeah. It's pretty good. It's expensive as hell. It's so you can know what the future. What it's like. It's like you get all the price of New York without any of the advantages of New York. And now we've got stabbings, so that's something. We're finally on board with that. Oh, we're finally violent. It took us a while.
Getting close to New York.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Yeah.
You talk about growing up on stage like that. I guess that must explain some of the confidence. I mean, most people that are comics exude some sort of confidence. I'm sure there's a lane of people that are a little insecure, but how did that manifest when you were younger? Was that, and I don't mean to be like
actor studio,
but like, you know, was that like, I think a lot of people, myself included, I turned to comedy as a way of, not that I'm a comic, but as a way of sort of dealing with adults and, you know, defense and things like that. It's all like defense mechanism. Was that something you recognized in yourself and you use in that way, or?
Yeah, 100%. Like my thinking was, because I had a British accent, and my voice didn't change till I was quite a bit older. So I was like 12 or 13 when my voice changed. So I sounded like the Queen the entire time. So I walk around like this. And you can imagine a little chubby kid that sounded like that. I got the shit kicked out of me. So I figured
by
out
Matthew
to do,
Perry. Was Matthew Perry out there kicking kids' ass? Because remember he beat up Justin Trudeau.
Matthew Perry, he what?
Yeah, he beat up Justin Trudeau in 5th grade. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
rest in peace. I don't mean to. I kind of forgot he just died.
No, I think that goes on the tombstone, doesn't it? I think if you beat up a leader of a country, like just imagine you had been like, look, I arm wrestled Macron, and that would be on your tombstone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bring it up. Sure. So I just got to that point where I figured, like, if I realized that if you make a joke before the other people do, then it depowers them, and so I kind of developed this. And because I had that accent and I tried to lose it, I developed a lot of vocal control, so I can do a lot of impressions and voices and stuff like that. And it was just kind of a natural progression. My mind would go really quickly, and I didn't really have any front brakes on it. It would just kind of go, and I would just like be able to like riff and make stuff up. And then I dropped out of school when I was 16, and I just kind of vacillated for a while, and then. Yeah, once I found stand-up, I was just like, oh, this is, I mean, luckily I found one of the few jobs you don't have to have a diploma for, and, it works with the complete, but most comedians are outsiders of some capacity. It's very rare. It's ironic that you said some are insecure. I think most comedians are insecure to a degree. Like I'm terribly insecure and shy, and I have a hard time even with things like this. Like this is, you guys are great, but like a lot of the times, like when I have to do press and stuff, I get quite nervous and quite something like I don't feel like I'm, that imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah,
There's like I have a lot of that. Yeah, I have a lot of that. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. There's always this sort of feeling of like, they're going to figure it out. And, that's why I could never be a serial killer. Because the whole time I'd be like, they're going to find them. They're going to find them. There's no way. They're going to look at my locker into mine.
Yeah,
that's one of them. I mean, it's also physically demanding. I mean, I can't even do a chin up. I can't imagine. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I get ones who take away kids, because I'm like, that's easier. You know what I mean? But like an adult, like imagine if your serial killer MO was 350-pound bikers. Everyone would be like, look, I respect that dude. Like, because, you know what I mean? You're just choking out giant bikers. You're just pulling them off their Harleys. And like, there's a serial killer. Yeah, they never say that. There's never a serial killer preying on giant men who are armed. They never have that. That would be your niche. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, if anyone's listening to this, you're looking for something to do, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do that. Like I said, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. They don't want to start a cult.
Find the path untrodden as a serial killer. It's
exactly. You got to get your own niche. There's so many. You know what? These true crime podcasts are so big right now. You want to get your own podcast? Do it while you're doing it. Actually, that would be something if a serial killer did an anonymous podcast while they were doing it. Creepy. Anyway, I don't want to give people ideas.
Yeah. Trademark.
He says in the black background, I do look like I'm doing a video like this. Your brother will never come here again.
So obviously, like listening to you, you're hilarious and can riff on the spot. How much do you improvise? I guess I have two ways I thought about asking you this. I'm sorry, Alan. I'll let you ask a question. I'm sorry. How much do you improvise your act while you're building it? And how much during, like in your most recent special, that's all like been worked out on the road, right? Like,
right. Yeah. So everything I do, the way I write is I go on stage with an idea. So I'll go on the stage with like the concept of AI. And I'll go on stage and I'll just let my brain go when I work out local rooms. I used to do like sort of 5 to 7 shows a week every week. A little less since the pandemic. Plus I had a kid, so I like to be home a little more. But yeah, my general MO is to go on stage with an idea and then riff that idea out until I get it to a point where it's workable. Then I put it away. Then I do that with all the different ideas I have. And then when I do hour-long shows, I'll do material that I know that works. And then I'll put the newer stuff in the middle and slowly but sure that kind of grows from the inside out. And then it becomes, right now I'm in the stage where I have my new hour done, but it's not tweaked. It's just raw. It's like raw material. It's like a big piece of lumber. It's not a chair yet. I've still got to go through, do everything, but the actual general material is there. And so I'm touring that right now. I'll be touring that until I feel like it's done. And then that's kind of, but even then, even between the first show and the second show, when we take that special, I was riffing lines on the second show. That's what we use mostly the second show that I did not have on the early show. I was just making them up as I went. And so there's a lot of that. And I do this thing once a year or so. I'll do a completely improvised headline set. I put a couple of them online and stuff just to get my brain going. So I'll do like an hour or whatever, just off the top of my head, or 45 minutes or whatever. But I also never record myself, really. I very rarely record my sets, which is, of course, is not good for the internet. But it's because I've trained myself because I've been a comic for so long. When I started, the facility to record yourself the way we do now did not exist.
Right.
So I just learned that, like, I remember I don't know how I remember them, but it's like the repetition of them to get in there. I have to do the bit 2 or 3 times. It's almost like I can kind of feel where the bits are instead of remembering the words. So I know where to get to. The words don't always have to be the same, but I know where I'm going most of the time. And then I know what it feels like when it works. And then I know kind of where I'm going from there. It's all very, sort of like crystals and shit, but it's like, it's kind of like
a
that.
lot of faith in yourself, right?
It's very instant. Yeah. Yeah. You just kind of trust that it'll work.
Yeah. Sort of problem solve on the spot.
Nice. How do you feel about crowd work? Do you hate it?
No, I don't. Like, it's like, the thing is, I used to do it when I would MC. Like, so when you start out, you usually get hosting work,
Right.
and particularly in the old days. And then doing material as a host is, once you right off the top is stupid. You got to talk to them. You're a host. You got to be like, hey, and it's fun. I like it. I like stretching out and doing it. But the problem is, as a headliner, I don't like to do it very much unless something specific happens, or as I'm doing sets, because you can only go as fast as the audience can go. And so you have to rely on them. And that's why a lot of crowd work I see is really, how can I say it, basic. Like, there is a lot of tricks and stuff we use, kind of like magicians. Crowd work is where you see most of it. I also noticed that, like, a lot of the clips you see online are heavily edited, which I really don't understand that. Like, the whole point of crowd work or whatever is you're in the moment. If you're just going to do all that post on it, just do bits.
Right.
So it's like, I would rather put out a special of actual material. I mean, I can crowd work. I do once in a while, just if I'm doing a corporate show, for instance. I got a corporate show coming up this weekend. I never do jokes because you have to be clean at corporate shows, and I don't like taking the
up with your racist and white power bit like you did on your
I like you just got me a whole bunch of new 4chan fans when you said that. Like, just a bunch of dudes are like, he's one of us. I'm like, no, and it's like, no, but yeah, like, so it's not even the language, it's the subject matter that can be quite heavy. I'm quite dark, and so when I do corporates, I'm just like, hey, what's your name, Bob? What do you do? You're an accountant. Like, oh, everyone must hate you, Bill. And then do like an hour of that. Yeah, and they think you're great because then they're like, this guy riffed he made up a whole set about us, and I'm just cycling in neutral. And then they give you a paycheck, and you go away and you find an open mic to cleanse your palate, and that's kind of how comedy works.
You're not dark at all. You dirty pinatas. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't imagine. I'm so much darker on this new hour. This new hour is
really
Jesus.
Really?
I don't know what I was thinking. A buddy of mine saw it when he ran it, and he's like, normally when comics do a special, the next one they back off of it. He goes, you did not. And I go,
Did you feel like that crowd turned on you at all in the second half, or like the final third?
No, it's by design.
Okay, yeah,
it's by design.
You have a very staccato style, so
yes,
I imagine the crowd work would definitely just totally throw off the pace of the show, right?
Yeah. So what it is like I engineer the set specifically to be a way where, like, one of the reasons why it's difficult to work the kind of material that I like to do is because if I drop into an open mic or just do a guest spot on a show and I've got 10 minutes, they have to know who I am if I'm going to work that sort of stuff, because it's too much to drop on them, right? Like, so you have to give them some way in. So that last hour I did, like, the stuff off the top for most comedians, like all the race stuff and everything, would be considered quite pushing it. But for my audience, which was mostly my audience, that was not pushing it. But what happens with my guys is that when I get to the heavier concept stuff, I slow down specifically. Like, that was me going quite slowly the whole special. And I slow down quite specifically to give people more chance to digest the points, because I know what I want to say and I know the speed I want to do it. But if they can't process it, if I'm asking them to do math in their head, essentially, in a way, and it's too much. And so I kind of slow it down. And that's why, if you notice that one, like, I kind of do all the conspiracy theory stuff and do all that stuff. And then I got to the gun stuff, which gets a little bit more tense. They get a little more tense. Then I got into the euthanasia stuff, the suicide stuff and everything, which they still like and they laugh at, but they're listening now
Right.
because I'm asking them to do more. And then
That's
at the
what
end, you know,
by
you
design.
make a chainsaw noise or whatever the fuck. Yeah. So yeah, it's all designed. Yeah.
So you have the audience really in mind the whole time. You sound like a very considerate lover, Simon.
Really, because I'm always the one getting fucked. Anyway.
So you talk about conspiracies just now. You talked about conspiracies in that last special. What's a conspiracy that you do believe, or that you at least want to believe?
That I want to believe. I really want to believe that not only are aliens here, but they have been running all the major public transit in major cities for the last 20 or 30 years. Like, that's what I want to believe. I want to believe. Because it would explain so much.
It makes more sense that way. Yeah.
It would explain that why, because they would be like, aliens would be like, you don't need light rail. You know what I mean? Like, aliens don't believe in that. Light speed, not light rail. No, I do want to believe some of the alien ones. I do want to believe some of those because I think it would be fun. It can't be. Because if they are here and they are anything like us and everything, the whole time, it would be like us going to a zoo. They would just be like, look at these fucking stupid monkeys. Like, look at them. We're going to eat them. Like, that's, they're just waiting for us to fatten ourselves up. That's all it is. Yeah, that's what I want to believe.
Nice. Alan, you got one? No, you don't have to do conspiracies. We move on.
Whatever.
Do you have any stories about like hecklers or like angry members of the crowd you had to interact with, or anything like that? He's smiling. Big smile. All right.
He's like, I said 24 years of this.
I've been on the road in like Western Canada, a lot of it for the last, 20, almost 24 years. I've probably done about 8,000 shows. And in that time, first of all, the idea of the malicious heckler is a lot less common than you'd think. They're not really that common. Like the idea, all these guys who are like, oh, heckler gets destroyed. I'm like, if you're having to deal with a heckler every night, you're doing something wrong. I would say in my entire career, I've probably had to deal with malicious hecklers maybe a couple dozen times, and that's out of 8,000 shows. So it's not very common. I'm not talking about people who just make a noise in the back or like, I'm drinking, have a good time. I'm talking about people who are there to wreck the show. I did, however, I have this story that
think they're helping, right? Like, because that's what you're saying.
Yeah, they're just whatever. I mean, drunk people are part of the business. I mean, what is it? Doug Stanhope said, we're booze salespeople. That's our job. Like, we're here to sell alcohol. And that's why it's like they encourage you to drink on stage, and they're like, you should make everyone drink. And I'm like, everyone does. And so it's like, to me, it's like that is just part of the game. But there was a situation that is a shining example of exactly what you have to deal with. So in 2010, I was doing this series of corporate shows, which sucked in a place called Saskatoon. And you're in a hotel.
Saskatchewan.
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Oh.
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Three Canadian years. Okay, sorry.
and I was working with my buddy, a comedian named Matt Billen, and we were the way it worked is every Friday and Saturday you would each do two corporates, one in the big room, one in the small room. But they sucked. It was just like corporate shows, and we were exhausted, and there weren't really any good shows to do. And we were in this hotel for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 6 if you count as going back and forth. And then the one of the bookers calls and she goes, "Hey, do you want to do this bar gig on like a Wednesday? It's 6 hours away to the west in a place called Medicine Hat." And we were like, 100%. We just want
get me out of here. Yeah.
So we're on our way there, and we get a call from these other guys. Like the way it works with corporate seasons a lot is like you're always like with road comics. A lot of times you cross over, you meet each other, you're in the same city. Oh, I'm playing this place, you're playing this place, and it's always fun. But we hadn't seen any of the comics really in that time, and we got a call from a couple of friends of ours, a guy named Paul Meyerhog and Ryan Patterson, and they're like, "Are you guys in Saskatoon?" We're like, "No, we literally are on our way to Medicine Hat." And they're like, "Oh, damn, I guess we'll miss you." So now we're pissed off. We get to the venue. The venue is a place that is called Whiskey Creek or Silverbrook. I can't remember, Whiskey Creek. And the way the room works is there's two bars connected by so there's like a bar down the middle. The room is kind of like, the whole thing is like a square. And then down the middle is this big bar that separates the two rooms. One side is the showroom. One side is the pool tables and everything else. And there's doors, but they are completely separate venues, but they share a bar that goes around through the wall and everything. So we get there, and the showroom is packed and insane because the top, there's this layer so there's the stage, and then there's this area next to you that's almost the same height as the stage. And that entire section of about 70 people was the former owner of the bar's Christmas party, and they were out of control. fucking hammered and yelling racist shit and terrible. And the rest of the bar was people who wanted to see the show. So now we're in a difficult situation because we have about 80 people who don't want to be there and are being pieces of shit, and about 80 people who do. And we're desperate to do the show because we want to do it. So we're like, all right, let's give it a shot, right? So Matt goes up on stage, and he's has done as much as me, a seasoned road comic. And there's particularly one table right next to the stage, literally to the right, this like shaved head dude and this other big dude, and they are just relentless. They're just horrendous. And they're not being funny. They're being like, fuck you, man, fuck kick your ass, like one of those guys. And I'm in the back getting more and more angry. You know, back when I was in my early 30s and full of piss and vinegar, like now, not now, I'd be just too sleepy. But then I was pacing. I was like, well, let me fucking at him. And then Matt left the stage at 30 minutes. We're supposed to do 45 each. And Matt left the stage at 30 minutes, which I have never seen him do. The audience was so bad that and I felt bad for the people in the room, because if the whole crowd's like that, it is what it is. But the people in the room that want to see the show, I was getting really upset for them, right? Because I was like, I just want to do a good show. And they were a good crowd. So then I get on stage. Now I'm in a mood. As soon as I get on stage, the bald guy next to me says loud enough for me to hear, and the people around him, Jewish. That's what he says when I get on stage, right? And I'm like, oh. And so I go to war. I shut him down, and then I yell at them, and I shut him down, and the audience it's coming along. But this guy particularly, the rest of the table, there's about 4 or 5 guys that are still being pieces of shit, but the rest of his entire table was on board now, and then the audience was on board. But this guy will not shut up. And finally, for the first time in my life, I was like, I got to get off stage. I can't. At 30 minutes, roughly same time, I was like, so I put the mic in the stand. I was like, I gotta get out of here, guys. I can't. And the server came up out of nowhere. I don't know why she came up this side, but she came up like this, and she's like, hey, these people want to buy you a drink. And I thought someone was fucking with me. And I looked over, and it was those 2 comedian friends of ours. They were lying. They were in town. They're both 6'5". Yeah, they're both 6'5", and they're both wearing all black. They look like Russian bodyguards. And in between the 2 of them is Matt Dillon, hammered out of his mind. They're all drunk as shit. And there's nothing funnier than watching your friends suffer on stage. Right. It's the funniest thing. So they're having the best time. And I was like, oh, you're going to embarrass me in front of my friends? So I put the mic in the stand. I said, all right, everybody, I'm going next door to finish the show. Anyone who wants to come with me is welcome to. And I marched over to the next show, and everybody but the 6 dudes at that table came over. And then the bar owner turned all the lights on. So they're just sitting, apparently. And I did another 45, because you can't move a whole audience and do 10. Right. So I did like 45, because Matt said, he's like, I thought you were going to fight the whole audience. I don't know what happened there, because he probably was on the other side. And so when those guys left, and I stood on a chair next to a pool table and yelled comedy, and it was great. It was that. So that's the kind of thing you've got to do to survive.
Dude, that's fantastic.
Talk about owning an audience, man. It's like, hey, we're going to go to another place. Sure. 100% down.
I've done it once since then too, in a similar situation, but it's quite, because the thing is, once they follow you, you can do no wrong, because they just saw you pull off this Ferris Bueller fucking thing. And it really is. I mean, you couldn't be more of a hero. So it's like, it's kind of easy. It's kind of a hack, but whatever.
You got to feel great after that too. Like, you got to be high for the rest of the night,
they still tell stories about it, but in the stories, it wasn't me that did it. In the stories, it was me getting dragged over there by the bald guy. I don't know what happened, but no, but that's the truth. It was good. Yeah. And then the owner of the bar was like, anytime you want to do another show, I go, that's a one-off. That's never happening again.
Never again.
And then we went back to our nice
pretty small town.
Saskatoon, this was Medicine Hat. Saskatoon's a decent size. It's probably 400,000
riders.
Okay.
No, that's Regina. They have the Rough Riders. Yeah, that's a little south. But the Saskatoon people are big Rough Riders fans, because there's nothing to do in Saskatchewan. And so I love it. But if you grow up there, you believe in flat Earth, because that's all there is. Like, there's nothing around. There's no curves. There's no mountains.
Oh, we went up in a balloon. It was still flat. Like, no.
Yeah. High up you have to get to see Manitoba. Fuck.
Hey, Alan, I think we could probably skip a few of these. Do you want to get into the headlines?
Well, we have to ask the one question we ask every guest.
Do you want to do that at the end?
Oh, the end. Yeah, we do.
I think it's a good end of show. Okay.
All
right. You traditionally do the first headline. You good for that?
Sure. So this is where we just read some headlines and we kind of riff about the headline a little bit, right? So first headline: a federal appeals court ruled that the federal government can sue under a key part of the Voting Rights Act, materially limiting the law. The case will likely reach the Supreme Court. So essentially what they rule is only the Attorney General can use the Voting Rights Act. Nobody else can. So a private citizen or a group can't do that anymore. Wild
Wait.
shit.
Wait. Hold, first of all,
Yeah.
I need to address the fact that this was quite an abrupt shift. I apologize.
Yeah, I know.
But
There was no
Sorry.
transition at all.
Am I not
only
moving?
the Attorney
Am
General
I not
of
moving?
federal government?
Yes.
Oh,
Only the federal
One
government
second.
can sue. Did you
there you
freeze?
go. I don't. I think I froze. Hold on. Am I back? There
Okay.
I am.
You are back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back. Sorry, I think I froze. That was weird because for a second I was like, "Am I having a stroke?" Like, because I was just stuck, and I was like, but I turned my head, but I didn't turn, and I was like, "What's going on?"
The black background also didn't help,
The
right?
floating head.
I was like, you just, that's how much I zoned out when you started talking about the Voting Act. I'm like, I just like, I willed the computer to freeze.
That's about how much attention this is going to get by the American public. They're like Voting Rights Act. What? They're not going to get rid of this. Who the fuck?
Oh
cares?
yeah, no, it's it's tenuous at best. The political system in the United States, it's like it's on
Very
its head
true.
of a pin. Yeah, and I mean, this is a. It's so funny how when it's one way around, activist judges are a bad idea, but when it's your guys, activist judges are great. You know what I mean? Like it's like always weird how when whatever team you're on, when it's your team, all bets are off, and when it's the other
That's
team,
why I say pack the courts. The second Republicans have a chance to, they're going to be like, you know what? We should pack the courts. Every time they like, there's political tools, and Democrats are afraid to use them, and Republicans don't care, and they use them better. And
there's a book called The Great Suppression. I don't know if you've read it. It's about voting rights in America, and it's about gerrymandering and forcing people not to be able to vote and making it difficult for them to vote, and the system that particularly the right has used very effectively, legal tools that they have used very effectively to limit the rights, because there is a war upon the idea of democracy in the States, because there is a group that a small but growing group of politically influential people who believe that not everyone should be allowed to vote. And so that is a thing that's becoming, so they're making it more and more difficult to vote. I mean, who was it? I think it was Ron DeSantis. Somebody said that if it wasn't for gerrymandering, then the Republicans would never win another election, which is essentially on paper true because of the way, and the whole system is very messed up. Like 2 senators for California, and it has all these people, you know what I mean? Like the whole system, it's kind of needs a revamp. But yeah, it's the idea that voting is safe and will never go away is a complete fallacy. It can be taken away in the stroke of a pen. And this is why I always wonder about, this is the thing, is like motivating liberals and left-wing people is extremely hard. We don't get together in groups. You can get together, right-wingers, for whatever they are very good at mobilizing.
Yeah.
They'll get together, they'll be like, I like that flag, and they'll just go and do whatever they do. But left-wingers will be like, well, I want to march, but what about the people who can't march? I mean, we need wheelchair accessible things. And then it just becomes this thing, and we fight each other.
Right.
And then it's over. So yeah, I think that's scary as all hell. I mean, but it's not surprising.
It's funny you talk about gerrymandering, because so the reason this case was brought, I think it was the NAACP and another group had sued because of gerrymandering in one of the states out east. And so the 8th Circuit, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, ruled that they didn't have standing. Only the Attorney General, they're saying, can actually sue for the Voting Rights Act. So it's probably going to go Supreme Court, and we'll see what they do with it.
Key parts of the Voting Rights Act in the headline. Are there other aspects of the Voting Rights Act that people can sue for, or is that unclear?
I think that's unclear at this moment.
You don't have to go read the article again. I see you highlighting. It's fine. So okay, do you have any intuition as to how the Supreme Court will take this? I mean, a lot of times we're like, we know exactly how they'll vote.
Man,
I mean, it's go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think it's one of those things where it would be very easy to write it off and be, well, with conservative majorities, etc., it would be very easy to say this won't go. But voting and voting rights and stuff are one of the few things where people who are traditionally conservative, socially conservative and stuff, still do tend to sometimes push towards more equality when it comes to voting rights, etc., because they believe in the system that is in place. The idea that, because the thing is about voting is that voting is required to give corporations power over government. If votes don't matter, and if votes can't be like bought with advertising and stuff, like you lose the ability to, like, so if votes don't matter, campaign contributions don't matter, which means you cannot control politicians. And that makes it much more difficult for the corporations to exert real power. And so
you remove that mandate that they have to work with the people that buy them, right?
Exactly. So it is a difficult thing to say. I think you're right. I think it might be on the surface, it might look like a good idea for people who are looking to suppress voting. But on paper, it might be like, well, hang on a second. If we do this, we actually weaken ourselves. I'd be fascinated to read more about it. Thanks for telling me about that. I'm going to have a look.
No,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
pretty wild that the federal government's like, yeah, only we can sue on this. What? That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sue ourselves. Oh, okay, good.
This next story is wild. I feel like I don't know anything about what's going on here. Most open AI workers threatened to join ex-CEO Sam. I'm not going to read the headline. The CEO of OpenAI was fired by the board Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then like over 700 employees at OpenAI said they're going to go to Microsoft, where Altman was immediately hired by Microsoft. Since then, he's supposedly in talks of offers to bring him back on and maintain those employees. If Microsoft pulls this off, they would basically have bought OpenAI for $0.
Well, they already owned 49% of OpenAI. So it's really bizarre. So the board fired him. All these employees signed a letter saying that they're going to leave if they don't bring him back. Microsoft immediately hired him. Well, Microsoft initially tried to broker with the board to have him go back to OpenAI. The board said absolutely not. So then they hired him. They're going to make him a CEO of that division, of the AI division at Microsoft. And so now 650, I want to say it's the most recent count, out of 770 employees at OpenAI signed that letter and said, we're getting out of here. So essentially that company's done if they don't bring him back. It's over. So pretty wild stuff. It's really unclear why the board decided to do this. Even one of the guys who was part of the effort to remove Altman has signed this letter and says he's leaving. It's like, what the fuck?
What is he, like a GOP House member? He's like, we want to kick him out, but then I'm also going to vote for him to stay. Like,
I don't know. It's very bizarre. Very bizarre. Just dropped over the weekend, and it's still unclear really what.
So is it? I guess. Go ahead, Simon.
I was going to say, that sounds to me very much like Microsoft said, all right, if you're not going to take him back, we're going to talk all these board members into jobs when he moves and giving him a bunch of pay. Like, it just seems to me like you're right, a very easy way to take over a company without spending very much money.
Office building, and you can stay in the same
and Microsoft is already working on building their own chip for AI training. So they're trying to get around using NVIDIA's chips. If they can do that, that would be a huge deal. And Altman was also working on that separately at OpenAI. So that's the whole synergy right there, man. That's crazy.
It's like Operation Paperclip app. Remember that Paperclip?
Exactly. Paperclip app.
Operation Clippy.
Looks like you're trying to create robot superhumans. Thanks, Clippy. Looks like you're doing a hostile takeover.
I want to ask you that the way I just laughed right there, that's how I laugh throughout an entire comedy show if I'm like genuinely enjoying the show. I saw Adam Burke and he pointed at me. He's like, this energy is what I want all the time. Like, was he being serious or was he being sarcastic? I can't control it, and I feel like it's obnoxious.
We can tell when it's when it's genuine and real, and I love a big laugher. I absolutely 100% love a big laugher. And when people can't control it, because that means I've asserted dominance. You know what I mean?
If I was a dog, I'd be peeing right now.
I am now more powerful than you. You cannot stop yourself. And so I have won.
Nice.
Okay, so as is tradition, we do a tournament here. Who wins, the federal government or OpenAI? Wow. I think OpenAI wins.
Really? Yeah.
Because I think still goes to the Supreme Court.
Still goes to the Supreme Court. Yeah. I think OpenAI is a big deal. Yeah. For sure.
Okay, because we don't know if they got fired for personal reasons or to because they were concerned with safety at AI.
I think if it were personal reasons, there would be some dirt out there already. Yeah, I mean, and he's always been on the safety side of AI, so it doesn't make any sense.
He sort of straddled it, but yeah.
All
right, you gotta go on.
All right, Secretary Lloyd Austin went to Ukraine, announced to support another $100 million in military aid, including another HIMARS, bunch of artillery and stuff like that.
Did they lose a HIMARS, or are we giving them an extra one?
We're giving them an extra one. So this, as a lot of people in the House and even some in the Senate are kind of getting a little cold towards Ukraine and thinking about maybe not supporting them as much as we have.
Are they using that presidential drawdown authority where they reallocate budget corrections or something like that.
Yes.
This didn't have to go through the House. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Do you see Germany is going to give them 1.4 billion?
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as of right now, the U.S. has given them $44 billion, I want to say, in aid, and the EU or European countries have given them, I think, $35 billion. So
And that number, it could be any number. Like, I swear I've heard a different number every time. If you told me it was 780 billion, I'd be like, yeah, that's
sure.
Right.
Yeah. It does seem. I think those numbers kind of every time I hear them, you do the math really quickly and you go, because the number is so big that your brain eventually, and also then they come down to a lot of this isn't just cash. People look at it and go, how come they gave them 100 billion? Well, it's not cash, dude. It's like it's mostly equipment allocation and it's all this other stuff. And so when they say $100 billion, they go the worth of the equipment. Because I remember when Hawaii was on fire, which was terribly tragic. They were like, how come we're giving money to the Ukraine? And well, we're not. I mean, Hawaiians can't use missiles. They don't need them right now.
This is true.
Well,
I mean, if they did,
is how much we're going to pay Raytheon to make more than we just gave from our stockpiles.
Right. It's the valuation.
Like that's exactly right. So what it is it's always good for business to have a proxy war, and it's always, when you can't have an actual hot war, have a proxy war, right? Everyone gets invited. It's a good time. If you're lucky, you'll end up like Vietnam or Afghanistan. It'll go on for decades. Everyone will make a bunch of money.
Multi-generational wealth.
That's all you want. All you want is that when your dad was a senator, he started the Vietnam War. He's like, let's Tonkin this shit. And then by the time you're a senator, you're in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? Like, you've done that too. Good for you. That's all you care about, right? It's I absolutely think that it's a lot. It is so much of this horseshit insider. Like, I mean, there's absolutely no reason for the United States to have the military budget it does at this point, because all that is it's going directly into the pockets of Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and the people who provide these things. And then, I mean, obviously there's wages and all that other shit, but like hundreds of billions of dollars. So when you talk about supplying $100 billion worth of aid to Ukraine, motherfucker, they go through that on a month. The Pentagon doesn't even know where that kind of money is. It's under the couch. They don't know. They have no idea.
The military industrial complex always wins every time.
It always does. It always does. There's always money for war. Not when you come home from war, but there's always money for war. You know,
I work at VA hospitals all the time, and every time I'm like, it's embarrassing. Yeah.
It's terrifying, and yeah.
Well, let's along the same lines. Hamas, along with signals from the U.S. and Qatari mediators, said that a truce agreement with Israel is close as fighting in Gaza continues. As of the time of this recording, they did make a deal that was announced. At least Israel agreed to a deal that would free 3 Palestinian prisoners for every 1 hostage. I can't help but imagine that if Biden negotiated that deal, Trump would come out talking about how bad that is. I'm just working on that joke. But,
I would have got all the hummus. I would have got all the hummus. It would have come out like, for me, they would have been like, that's the greatest hummus ever. I would have done that.
She's like, what are you talking about, you psycho?
So this is good, right? This
Progress. Yeah.
There's like a 5-day ceasefire. Is that coming up too? Then is that?
I mean,
yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Anytime you're not bombing hospitals, I'm a fan. So I just think that it's like, it's so funny because like I'm hardly a person of note, but I do get asked to state my position on it, and I'm like, look.
Yeah, we forgot to.
I will tell you.
You condemn Hamas. I'm sorry.
Do you condemn Taylor Swift? I do. In all terms, I condemn Taylor Swift. Swifties are the name of the missiles we use.
Hypersonic.
Hypersonic Swifty missiles. Just every time you don't dive, you just feel sad about your ex-boyfriend.
I could literally
just moping around.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I just feel sad. I'm just gonna half drink this cappuccino and walk away. Like,
I think we're good there. There's plenty to overturn on this subject, but there's not a lack of discussion on it.
No, I think it's a good thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're talking about maybe 50 hostages released from the Hamas side and maybe 300 from Israel's side or something like that, and then a ceasefire for a few days.
There can't be many more than 50 left alive, right? Like, are they still doing proof of life? I mean, when you destroy that much of Gaza, like, there's got to be consequences. I don't mean to fucking bring up a dead dog record here or something, but that's got to be most of them. Okay, who wins, Alan? Ukraine or Hamas. I think that's a bigger deal. I think the hostages one.
So do I.
Pivot.
So
Okay.
do I.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Hostages. Okay, Alan, your turn.
A Colorado judge ruled that Trump can remain on the state's primary ballot, deciding the 14th
Now this is
Amendment.
legal precedence, right? So now it's like, yeah, if this ever comes up, we don't really have to try it out again. It's been decided that, okay.
It was interesting because the judge agreed that Trump caused the insurrection. He just said, yeah, he caused the insurrection, but the third article of, doesn't state, it doesn't include the president as part of the offices that you would be banned
That
from.
argument one, that he's not an officer.
Yes. So here's the reason
That was
why.
the dumbest argument. That was the one that was easiest to dismiss. Of course.
So the reason why was a previous version of the 14th Amendment included, it actually listed
the
the
officers and
it included the vice president and the president. They amended it. They amended the amendment to not include that. And so
what was
the judge said,
context when they did that, though?
I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's what
I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet it was during one of the administrations where they were planning on going to war and not going to jail for it.
Yeah,
probably.
It's probably Dick Cheney's like, just like moves this. Like,
we can't have the unitary executive theory with this shit line.
Yeah.
Like we can't have that on paper. Call in, Ron. We need a shuttle.
It's the same reason we're not part of the International Criminal Court, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I love how you can have a president of the United States basically get out there and be like, I'm just saying, overthrow this shit. And then everyone's like, I don't think that's bad. How is that bad? And yet Obama wears a tan suit. And look, I'm not an Obama fan, but the guy literally wore a tan suit and everyone's like, it's a disgrace to the office. I'm like, I'm sorry. I know what's a disgrace to the office. And it's like having people pepper sprayed and beaten up and everything when you're walking because you're so unpopular. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's so polarized.
Sorry, beating a cop with an American flag. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Beating a cop with an American flag. Well, that's the thing. It's like we're all on the side of the cops until the cops start actually doing the job they're hired to do. And they're like, you can't just come in here and take shit. And then they're like, I'm going to jail because I stood up for my freedom. No. You can't post videos of people looting stores in San Francisco and say that's bad, and then say that the January 6th isn't bad. You know what I mean? Like this double standard, the hypocrisy is what actually drives me the most insane. It's one of the reasons I backed down my news consumption, because I was just sitting there like pulling my hair out, getting like, what the fuck? It's so obvious. And yet somehow this all gets forgotten. Like a week later, it's like, I'm sorry, the government was like, the actual seat of government was attacked by citizens that were inspired to attack that seat by a sitting at the time politician that happened to hold the highest office in the land. There needs to be repercussions for those people. And yet there's all this legal loopholing and jumping around. If the Democrats had a fucking set of balls amongst them, they would have done something about this, but they don't, because it doesn't serve them to do this. They want to keep all this stuff, political theater going, because it's the news corporations love it and everything. And the more you can just muddy the waters, the more this stuff, people get bored. They don't want to care. They don't want to listen about it anymore. Black Friday sales are coming up. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? And so this shit happens.
Yep.
It's infuriating.
It really is. Do you get that sort of clarity looking at this from living in Canada? I'm not going to sit here and take this from somebody.
I think that, yeah. So I think that, like, because of Canada's relationship with the United States, your culture, I mean, it's the biggest gorilla in the room, right? Like, so we have to be very aware of what's going on down there because you're our largest trading partner.
We're the neighbor. You're like, we have to know what he's fucking doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we got to pay attention because your party might come over our borders. And like during COVID was interesting because Canada was like, it went full on like, shut it down, shut the fucking thing down. And then America was like, some of us don't care. And then we were like, we actually have to, the idea that Canada shut its border with the United States is insane to me. That these are the two, this relationship with the largest unprotected border in the world, land border in the world. And we've had this relationship where we trade more and we connect, and we've slowly but surely, the relationship between Canada and America has become more and more acrimonious. And a lot of it has to do with what the fuck is going on down there. And we feel, a lot of us feel very bad.
Acrimonious is bad.
Acrimonious is bad. Yeah. It's my magic word for elixir. Acrimonious.
Yes.
And then
so you guys
people divorce. That's my spell. Acrimonious. I don't like you anymore. I'm taking the dog.
It is a legal word, isn't it?
Definitely is,
yeah. You were saying you feel bad. Is that what you said? Like people.
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I mean, I think it's It's so sad because I also know it's not the majority of Americans. I also
Yeah.
know it's not the majority of Americans. It is a
Not
small
even
but
the majority of
extremely vocal group. It's not, but it's extremely vocal.
Half of the country votes. Half
Mhm.
of those people vote for Republicans, and about half of those people only vote for
Yeah.
Trump because he's the Republican, leaving the rest as the hardcore Trump people anyways. So it's like
Yeah.
an eighth of the country. Did I do that right? Is that an eighth?
That sounds about right.
That's
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also the entire population of Canada. I mean, we have you guys.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, 35 million people, 36 million people, which is about what it probably is for us. That's our population. And so
You're
the
right.
idea, and don't forget, most of us live really close to the border. Like we're right here.
About
And so
100
whatever the fuck goes, yeah. And so just suppose someone decides just randomly to start a war or decide to do whatever. We get it in the teeth as well. So we are concerned. But to see the political relationship and the diplomatic relationship between the United States and Canada get to the point it has got to is really sad, because I grew up around here, and I remember we just used to go across the border, like it was the middle of the night, we'd just be like, let's go get some fried pies from a gas station.
I used to live in Detroit, and I'd head on over to Windsor. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just another place to go and hang out. And then I understand because there's that thing that happened in 2001. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, there's that thing, and so I get that makes it.
that thing, that little thing.
Well, that thing, I don't know what it was. Anyway, but I remember that like after that, things got a little bit more tense, obviously. But I lived in the United States in like 07, 08, 09. And even then, even with the financial crisis and everything, even with when Obama got elected, there was this knee-jerk reaction and everything. Even then, it wasn't anything like what has happened now. This started with the Tea Party and the conservatives, the people that are Republicans now, that are actually the old school Republicans, are getting few and far between. I mean, just look at elected officials. There's so many of them are so far right. They're indistinguishable from the Tea Party MAGA people. So even if they don't declare themselves to be that, they are that because they go where the money is and they vote. And because that small group of people does vote, but I think that power is waning because I think Trump's power is actually waning. I try to tell
Alan every week, I think we're at peak culture war right now. I think this looks bad.
Yeah.
I think this, like, people are saturated with this shit. Like, you can't put more into the sponge. It's overflowing. Like, is that along the lines of what you're saying or no?
Yeah, I think this was a very necessary thing because I remember when Obama got elected, a lot of people in the United States pretended like, oh, we're good now. Racism's gone. Right. Everything's fine. I'm like, no. And so there was this ability to pretend for a long time like things were fine. And then what happens is this ugliness didn't come out overnight. These people have been around for generations, and the ability to weaponize people's A, stupidity, B, hatred, and C, frustration is not difficult to do. If you find a demagogue who's out there willing to just say, none of it's your fault, everything's their fault, I'm going to fix it. He stands for everything they don't. Like, he's a billionaire. He's not one of them. He calls people in Hollywood a Hollywood elite. Yeah, if he is actually a billionaire, but I don't think he is. But anyway.
I thought you were talking about Bernie. Okay, yeah, I'm listening now.
I love Bernie. I don't love Bernie.
I used to have a joke about Bernie Sanders doing Back to the Future.
It's like, if this gets to 88 miles an hour, you will go back in time to a time when American workers were paid a decent living wage.
And he just everything about the movie.
Did this
everything in the movie?
Did this come from a Doc Brown impression that's ended up sounding more like Bernie, or like what's the?
No, it just came from my idea of him like being every time in every move, because I love Bernie, but he constantly just is on the same message every time. It's financial or it's like this, and so it was like I love the idea of Marty being like, Doc, and he'd be like, you don't have access to a doctor because like he can't do anything in the movie. You know what I mean? Like he just can't.
Right.
Like he tries to reason with the Libyan terrorists. You know what I mean? Like they come up, he's like,
"You are angry because you don't have access to appropriate food and medical care,"
and they're like, "Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat." I just like the idea of that. I like the idea of just replacing Doc Brown with Bernie and keeping the rest of the movie the same. I love the idea of that.
Love it. That's fantastic.
I can't talk about Back to the Future without pointing out when he came back from the past, there were two Martys in that scene, and he stayed there. And I don't know what he did with that other Marty, and it's just nobody's ever answered that. But
it's a conundrum, Dustin.
It is a conundrum.
Where did the other Marty go? There must be. There's probably a whole Reddit fucking hole you can go down. There's a whole Reddit everything.
You know what it is? I just don't want to read it, so I'm gonna leave it. Alan, do you want to do this last headline? Are you good on time, by the way?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I got nowhere to be.
Okay.
Kid's smoking cigarettes. He's fine.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
That keeps him busy.
Yeah, he's
Whatever.
got his barbed wire to play with. He's good.
All right. So Apple said it will remove the green text when you text an iPhone from an Android. So Android wins, man. We won.
So
we got the USB-C.
He says, "Wait, hold on, Simon. Air brakes." He thought he could slide a one in there. He says one instead of one.
I don't know what you mean. I do know what you mean, actually, but
every once in a while he says it the right way too. But Simon, how do you say WON?
WON? One.
Yeah, of course. It
one.
rhymes.
Yeah, one.
It's like the number one. Okay, he says one. Anyways, yes, Android. It's weird.
You won.
Android won. This was an argument that nobody ever wanted to ever hear me say, but I was always like, at any point, Apple could get rid of this whole blue text, green text thing and get rid of all this shaming that people like to cast on it. It's all because of the infrastructure of iMessage. And they thought that iMessage was going to win out, even though they kept it proprietary. And then finally they're like, fine, we already have USB-C. I guess we'll change it to green text. We'll keep it blue, though. I bet you they keep it blue.
It's going to be all blue. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's going to be all blue. So I don't understand how the superhuman Android One, who the Mexican robot who takes it, I don't understand how he fits into this. Does he just come to your house then and tell you the messages?
Yeah,
Android One?
It's George Lopez. He comes to your house and he reads your text messages to you.
And he brings you dongles so that you can transfer your cable over to the newspaper. A dongle? Am I using dongle?
Android, unleash Android One. Walking down the street.
The newest AI from Microsoft.
Yes.
Android One. AI.
All right. Okay, Alan, who wins this one? The Trump wins or Apple? I don't know. Can we say Apple wins? I'm tired of
I
Trump.
don't want to skip that. Yeah.
When's the last time he won? Actually, you got to throw him a bone. I mean, when was the last election he won? Really?
Well, technically, he's never won an election.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
He doesn't have the popular vote. So
yeah, that's something people like to hang out on, even though he was president for 4 years.
Sure. He won the Electoral College.
You're saying it on purpose. I can hear you saying won. Okay, I gave you a couple of other news headlines. Do you want to do? We need to do one of them. One.
Well, the first one we already talked about. That's Perfect. The voting rights one.
All right.
So the second one is about the guys from Backpage. So Backpage, the monumental free speech case the media ignored. So there was a whole thing where they were allowing sex workers to advertise on their site, and Congress
they weren't making them not do it.
Right. They weren't policing it. And so Congress got the panties in a bunch and said that they were part of sex trafficking and they had to take the site down. And then they decided that was going to be a crime. One of the guys killed himself. The other guy's facing something like 20 years in jail. Guy
was in his 70s and killed himself. The other guy, these guys have been reporters since like 1972. They're not like these. Yeah, they ran not underground. What do you call it? Just alt reporting outlets.
Alt news services.
Yeah, alt news services. Yeah. So like your New York Times or whatever papers. They've been journalists their whole career, and they opened Backpage, and a section of it was used for what they're talking about. But like, none of this should have happened. Like this, it shouldn't be illegal for consensual adults like to agree to something and money exchanges hands, like where you move your money to another bank account, whether it's foreign or not, shouldn't matter either. Advertising consensual services should not have been illegal. Like the publisher.
Also, even law enforcement said that they had an easier time finding sex traffickers because Backpage cooperated with them. The FBI said it was easier when they were.
That wasn't even one of the initial charges. Yeah, that's one of the things people talk about is like child sex trafficking, and like that did get charged later after like Kamala Harris was a senator and kept talking about it in the Senate. She's, by the way, she's the one that made the charges initially. Imagine going against the vice president. Like, but like, and it's just none of this should have ever happened. Like, none of this should have been a law to be charged with.
But the idea that America has this weird puritanical bend to it, where it's like a country where you can use sex to sell hamburgers, but heaven help if two consenting adults want to actually do the thing. I mean, go on Instagram. There's a lot worse shit on Instagram. I mean, look, there's so many sites out there that are, and I mean, so what do you do at this point? So you're saying basically these guys who operated this paper, this magazine, this whatever that did a bunch of other things, happen to have this one section that did this. There's an entire section of America called Nevada that does this, and I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like, what I don't understand is, like, so if you were to try the case, this would never be a case if this was a Nevada state issue. No. So what I don't understand is, and this is the same thing, and it goes with drug laws and everything else. This is a way to exert control and to produce theater to make people think you are doing things that are good. Yep. In the meantime, children are starving to death, 2 miles outside of Chicago, because even in the richest country in the history of the world, they can't feed their own fucking people. And yet this is what they're spending the money and time on. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, if these guys are legitimately helping find people who are doing horrendous stuff, yes, that's good. They should be allowed to help find it. The other, like, prostitution has existed as long as people have existed. It's not going to go away because you put these guys in prison. What's going to happen is it's going to go more underground, as it always does. My parents toured Europe in the 70s in a band, and they used to live in, like, Italy and stuff, and they lived right above a brothel, and the cops would come across in their lunchtime, do their business, and go back over. And it was all copacetic. The girls were taken care of. They were not beaten up or pushed around. There were no pimps to deal with. It was a much safer and better for everybody. And, you could tax them. I mean, if you really want, if I don't understand, other than the appeal to this weird puritanical religious base, this idea. America is a shockingly and often disturbingly religious country. I mean, you think about, like, the level of fundamentalism and fanaticism of religion. I mean, people talk about countries like Iran and stuff. I mean, it's not far off in some places in the United States. And this is what you're dealing with, is this population of people who believe, for whatever reason, that, I mean, I just have a bit right now that's out about how it's basically about how OnlyFans, people who look down on OnlyFans models are hypocritical, because it's like, well, what do you work at a mill or something? You're selling your body too. And the whole point is talking about how they're selling their bodies too. And it's just the work they're doing. And one guy's like, the amount of negative stuff I've got from these incel 4chan dudes is, like, remarkable, because they don't want to admit that it's right, that they are selling their bodies too, but they're not even making as much money, and they're not their own boss. And then the argument always comes down to, well, if you want to burn in hell, or if you want, it's always that. It's always that
morality. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
It's this like, you can keep, like, yes, exactly.
And we know that all prohibition does is create black markets.
Yes.
And makes everybody less safe. It makes it less safe for sex workers. It makes it less safe for people who want that service. Like, it's fucking stupid.
But you know what else prohibition does? Prohibition makes a lot of people very rich.
Yeah,
right.
True.
It does that as well.
True.
And so it gives exerts a lot of control and allows people to use leverage points. And so, I mean, it is one of these things where there's a lot more going on than they don't really give a fuck about those laws. They don't care about that. They don't care about the girls. They never cared about that shit. They care about, like I said, the leverage they can exert, the political theater, the ability to, if you really wanted to go after traffickers and stuff, there's a bunch of other things you can do to go after traffickers. This is not one of them. So,
did you ever see the movie Molly's Game?
No.
So it was, it's not Aronofsky. It might've been Aronofsky. It's about a woman who has an underground poker tournament, or she has a poker table going, and somebody feels like they got slighted. So they turn her into the feds, and the feds ruin her life. And then at one point decide they've done enough. They can stop now. They'll drop the case. And I guess I spoiled it, but, like, the theme of this movie is the government can, and I'm not meaning to come across it, like, because I used to have more of a libertarian phase. I had a lot of phases. Now I've settled strictly independent. And we don't know each other from Adam. I don't, this is not one data point to describe me. However, I do believe that the government, if they want to, can just completely ruin your life to make an example out of you for everyone else.
Yeah, 100%.
And then once you're no longer useful, they can either stop or just put you in a cell somewhere. And
look at George Carlin.
Yeah.
I mean, look at George Carlin. They tried to bankrupt him numerous times. They did. The IRS went after him forever. He was, I believe, on Nixon's enemies list. Like, they decided that he was a problem for them. and they basically pushed and pushed and pushed. The same thing happened to Lenny Bruce. They pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. If you dissent enough, I'm surprised Dick Gregory lived as long as he did, because I honestly thought he would have been gone, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so
first of all, he showed the Zapruder film, right?
oh right, yeah, and it's like the thing is with that too is like I think, and just to get a tiny bit off topic, I think with comedians these days, anytime a comedian complains about being canceled, I think it's fucking hilarious, because I'm like, you know what gets you canceled? When the cops are there when you come off stage because you said because you were indecent, you know what I mean? And so the idea that like, but anytime you stick your head up above the crowd and you do something, Glenn Greenwald's book about Edward Snowden was really interesting, and it talked about how this guy realized what he was doing. He knew when he did what he did that his life was over. He knew he could no longer be an American. He knew he could no longer be ever go back. He gave up on paper what would be a dream job. Whatever you think of Edward Snowden, the fact is, and same with Chelsea Manning, the fact is these people did what they believed was right, which is supposed to be what America is.
Don't forget
and because it upset who?
Don't forget my favorite one is Reality Winner.
Reality Winner.
Real name of a woman who sneaked an NSA document out showing that the voting machines in 2016 could have been breached, and they put her in prison.
Fucking great. Yeah, of course, and that's it.
Her real name is Reality Winner. Please,
that's her real name.
Don't let me derail you.
Name. Yeah. She gave it to The Intercept, I think, right? Yeah.
But T, that to me is like the fact that you. I mean, I'm a very liberal dude, but I'm also not stupidly. I'm not fanatical about anything. Like I really am open to conversations regarding these things. But generally, I mean, I know Democrats, Republicans, whoever's in power, they're not there because they want to do good things. They're there because they want to be in power. The majority of the time is they do the things they do to appeal to their base. I don't think necessarily most corporations are inherently evil for the fuck of it. They're doing it because it makes them more money. So if it made them more money to be good, they just do that. It's not anything other than they're driven by the forces that feed their greed. And it's the same thing with politicians, and it's the same thing with enforcing laws, and it's the same thing with doing these things. If you blow the lid off a war that's not supposed to be happening, if you blow the lid off surveillance, if you do things that rock their boat, you're fucked. That's it. It doesn't matter. And then when they're done with you, if Edward Snowden gets so much as like within 100 feet of Alaska, he's going to be in a pit for the rest of his life. And he knows it, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
People are like, oh, he's a Russian citizen. It's like, you think he fucking wanted to? Like,
no, not at all.
Yeah. Would you really do that? You're like, of all the places I think I want to go, you want to talk about a government that surveils you. Like, I don't know why he chose there of all places.
Well, he had like two options at the time, and the other one was worse. I don't remember, but
was it like Guatemala or something? Did he
somewhere
have
in South America? I think.
Yeah. And that was his other option.
Yeah.
He's like, do I want to tan or do I want to be
They're like,
arrested?
You can trust, as long as you don't piss us off, that our security service will actually keep you safe. And he's like, yeah, that's probably more true there than Panama.
Yeah, and also, I guess, having done what he'd done, he was probably useful to the Russians in some capacities. They would have made his life easier.
I don't dismiss that. Yeah.
I mean, why not? I mean, you got to. And that's the dumb thing is if the Americans had not pushed him away, they would not have been handing over an asset to a foreign, obviously not friendly power. So it is what it is. True. But I mean, there's so many books about this. There's so many. It's just consistent legislation for control, for manipulation, and for greed. It all comes down to that. No matter how far you follow it, it just comes down to greed. That's all it is, right?
Yep. It's human nature, right? And it's the flaw in every political system. It's like when we grew up in a capitalist society, they were like, look, the USSR collapsed because, at the end of the day, human nature is greedy and it doesn't work under that system. Okay.
Yep.
What about this? Oh, that's not greedy. That's a different thing. It's like,
yeah, we're fine. We're fine. Fine. No problem at all. But you got to have a bigger pool than your neighbor. Otherwise you're anyway.
Exactly. Okay.
What you said earlier about being open to conversation, that's perfect for our show, man. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Dustin and I definitely don't agree on everything politically, but we're open to having the conversation and doing it in a civil way. And we've been friends for 20 years doing that.
And we've always you have a bit, and I hate to keep referencing your last special. I swear I've seen more of your comedy than that, but you have a thing where you talk about ideas changing over time and having the ability to do that. And I mean, that's like, that connects with me. That's our huge, I mean, Alan, do I bring it up? When
Sure.
I worked in Burbank, I legitimately was convinced. I was younger too, and I'm not proud of this, but I say this because of the context of having the ability to change. When I worked in Burbank, California, I had a dislike for Armenian people that was completely racist, and I will fucking say that because I wish I could see my itself and beat him the way that I do mentally in my head for that.
Yeah.
Now, if I never had the chance to change, that's horrible. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like the idea that like you can't, because in comedy we deal with this because I've been around for a long time. So some of the stuff, some of the words I used in my act 10, 15 years ago are no longer appropriate. Now, you could look at that and you could be like, well, you could try and cancel someone for something that happened 15, 20 years ago, or you could be like, this person has clearly made the choice to adapt and grow. And the idea that conversations somehow got off the table and started turning into shouting matches is where we really kind of went wrong. Because when you have, I believe in the classical sense of an argument, in sense of like, I want to learn something and hopefully impart something in this exchange of ideas. We don't have to agree, but we have to agree to communicate. And the fact that right now what's going on in the United States particularly, and it is very much by design. Matt Taibbi has a book called Hate Inc., which really talks about the media's manipulation of this and turning into almost like sports rivalry. People are very easy to manipulate. They're not hard. I actually have a bit in one of my specials where I point that out right off the top. I come out and I yell about, before they even know who I am, I yell about how the sun's a piece of shit. We have to destroy the sun. And I get them going and I go, who's with me? Destroy the sun. And they go, yeah. And I go, well, you're stupid. We need the sun. We need the sun to live. And that's how Fox News works. And right there, everyone's like, shit. And it takes, I call it Hitlering a room. It doesn't take long to Hitler a room. It really doesn't. You can make it. You can make it mad about anything. You can, because people have emotions that they're not allowed to express because they're in a system that right now, particularly in the United States and Canada and Western countries, capitalist system, late stage capitalism is extremely frustrating and desperate for the majority of people. Middle class is disappearing, and people realize that there's less and less hope every day, and people are falling apart. I mean, and so they have this rage and this anger and frustration. And all you have to do is light a fucking match. And that's what they do. And it works so well. And that's why, but you can unlight that match with a lot of people. They just don't know. I never try and reach the people who are too far away from me. I'll never get them. And the ones that are already close to me, I don't need to worry about. But when I tour and when I go to a lot of places like that would be considered quite conservative, I don't change my fucking act. I have this bit right now that I've been doing in the oil fields in Alberta about putting a plastic bag over an oil executive's head so he realizes air matters. Like, that's how you fix the environment. And they lose their shit. They love it because they're like, yeah, they also know. So it's like, all you got to do is, and that's why humor is a great delivery system for that message, because they can laugh, which disarms them. But then you're giving them a point where you go, see, we are not far apart. We're actually very close together on the majority of things. But you've been told you hate me. And because you're too busy trying to survive to deal with that message you're getting, you just take that message and go because everyone else does it. So you're like, I want to be on a team because I'm lonely and scared. And that's all it is. And it doesn't take much to do it.
Yeah. Scared or not, like, you're going to have to go work with your coworkers, and chances are over time, you're going to,
Unless they're Armenian, right? Anyway.
Of course, yeah. No, now I hate Azerbaijanis. Totally easy. It's different.
Oh, I like how you're narrowing it down so you're less likely to run into people. You know who I hate? The Inuit. I'm not a fan.
You don't even see them up there, do you?
Yeah, you're slowly getting it down, just down to like 2 people. Like, he's really racist against 2 people. I don't know why, but he is.
The Senate, what's that island that hasn't seen man? Southern man. Good grief.
Off the coast of like Madagascar.
Sentinel Island. Yeah.
Yes, Sentinel Island.
Yeah.
I hate the Sentinelese. I feel comfortable saying that.
Fuck the Sentinelese. And then just out of nowhere, oh my god! They have this is the one podcast they watch. They got a computer. One of the missionaries left it when they tried to convert him, and they finished eating him, and they're like, "What's this thing?" And they're like, "Oh my god, I love this podcast." And then they're like, "What?" And you just lose like 400 listeners. Where's our Patreons disappeared?
What happened?
The Sentinelese.
Yeah, that was a good pull. I'm high.
That was.
There you go. Do you want to, Alan? Have you been watching anything this week? You want to talk about your media?
Oh yeah, I watched this fantastic special, as good as or better, on YouTube. Simon King killing it out there. You guys should go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, you probably have. You
probably have. If you haven't, do it, and if you have, watch it again.
Let me give you a minute. If you think of it, could be a media of any form. Something you read,
movie, show.
Yeah. I watched the movie. It's been on Prime for a while now. I think it came out last year. It was about what's called The Covenant. It was Guy Ritchie. If you told me it was a Guy Ritchie movie and I didn't know, if you told me afterwards, I wouldn't have believed you. It just felt like a very modern movie. Storytelling wise, he doesn't have weird cuts like he normally does. It's about a guy who has a bond with his translator in Afghanistan. He's he's in the army, and then he comes back after we leave, and then he has to. No, it's before we leave. He gets sent back because he was injured, and then that's the exact halfway point of the movie is right there. The second half of the movie is him going to try to retrieve him and give him to be a U.S. citizen as we had promised him, and I won't spoil that. Alan, did you say you'd seen that already or no?
I have. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It's tough to watch in parts, but it's a really well done movie and
really
accurately depicts what the U.S. did when we pulled out of there.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys that we used as translators and fixers and helped our guys out, we just totally left. You know, it really sucks. Really sucks.
Shameful. Yeah.
It's absolutely appalling. Because I actually just read an article about that not that long ago, and I was just like, the depth to which the fucking backstabbing of it all. Like these people who lost everything, and most of them were killed. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, that's great. So you just use, but it's just, that's how empires work, right? You don't clean up the mess you make; you just make the mess. Once you've taken what you need, you go, right? That's the way it works, right?
If you can divide and conquer, ideally divide and conquer, but
ideally, if you're given an option, you don't want to unite and get together with democracy, friendship, diplomacy.
Gross.
Where's the explosions? Where's the explosions?
Stuff that goes boom.
That's like Star Wars, the prequels. Like no one wanted to watch the scenes in the Senate. Everyone wanted lightsabers. Like that's just the way humans work. Like no one wants to watch democracy or diplomacy happen. Everyone wants. That's what they fucking want.
How about you?
What do we do? What have I been watching lately?
Do you stay away from do you stay away from comedy while you're building your act? Like, are you afraid of things that are influences on you, or not at this phase?
No, not anymore. It's funny because I didn't really watch comedy for the first many years that I did stand up, and then once I found that I was comfortable in who I was, then I started consuming more of it. There's always a risk that, especially as an impressionist, there's a risk that if you do an impression too much, or if you do something, you could end up subconsciously mimicking those people. So that's a thing. But I've been able to avoid that.
I will say the compliment that I had given you is that you reminded me of like Carlin mixed with good God, Robin. But like in a way that I didn't feel like you were doing an impression of either of them, but just the way that you kind of go off on these rants and you kind of go into voices, it's very much uniquely you, of course. But it reminded me of two of my favorites. So
that's incredibly flattering. And that's if I had a goal to be going for, it would be something along those lines, because I always wanted to be kind of like, I was always goofy, but I had things I wanted to say, and then I learned how to say the things I wanted to say, and I'm like, now I can put more of the goofy in, and before you know it, you got Robin Williams going, the Voting Act is fucked. It's the weirdly political.
Man, I can't handle a Robin impression.
I know, right? Nice. Like it's hard to be able to talk to him whenever I want. It's difficult. Like, you're doing fine, except the Armenians. Fuck them. Anyway.
Okay. Do you have anything that comes to mind? Something you've been watching, or you want to move on to our game?
I started reading a new book that I really like, and I can't remember. It's
fiction,
short. It's nonfiction. It's called A Short History of How Humans Fucked It Up, I think it is. And it's basically, it's kind of like, Sapiens, which is dry. It's like that, but like from a funny, with a British sense of humor of like, this is where it went wrong. And it's like really funny because it's anthropological study, but it's done from the point of view of like, it's historical and anthropological, but it's done from the point of view of why we make the mistakes we make and why that helps us succeed and why it helps us fail. And I love that kind of dark, gloomy, but kind of optimistic humor. So I'm enjoying that read. And I totally got the name of it wrong, and no one will be able to find it. And I've done the author a terrible disservice. But anyway, it has a green cover.
Okay. It sounds like that would actually make a really good.
We'll find it. Yeah. Do you have one of your favorite comedians that maybe nobody knows about that you would recommend?
Well, I don't know if nobody knows about him, but I firmly believe one of the greatest, if not the greatest stand-up comic ever, is a guy named Doug Stanhope. And I believe
When you were talking about convincing a room to Hitler, I was like, oh, a beer hall push.
Yeah, exactly. Consistently, Doug has. I've seen Doug live many times. I've been fortunate enough to open for him.
Cool.
I have been incredibly impressed by his abilities. His skill set is remarkable. His lack of quarter, he does not give a fuck for compromise. He does exactly what he wants to do. He does it the way he wants to do it. And if you don't like it, hit the brakes. And he is, because of that level of freedom, he's able to not only beat most of us to the punch, but find jokes that most of us didn't know were there. A real short example of this is the first time I ever met him. I opened for him, and I just did a 5-minute set because I was just doing a guest spot. And it was this little tiny club in Victoria, BC, and I was at the back of the room. And I had in my set a bit about how at that time I was 37, and I was like, oh, my eyes have turned into black marbles. Like, no one gives a fuck about me. And I was talking about how like my eyes are these black rings, and set went well. Middle guy goes up. Doug comes out, and I'd had that bit hashed out. Doug comes out, and he walks out. He goes, hey, Simon, you know how you know you're old? They only advertise from 18 to 35. You're so old, your fucking money doesn't even matter. And I just put my head on the desk. And I was like, how did I miss that? And he did that like that. And I was like, okay, well, there you go. Back to school. So for me, check out Doug's stuff if you don't know Doug Stanhope, because if you like my stuff, Doug's like 1,000 times better. So
and prolific, like
you
know,
a lot out there.
Yeah.
Great,
he's incredible. He's incredible, and he may not be with us for much longer. So catch him while you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he doesn't take care of himself real well.
No,
he's epic. He's epic. Yeah.
But one of the questions we like to ask our guests, and I feel like I'm itching for your answer to this. We like to ask, take a breath, think about it if you have to. What's the dumbest thing you've ever done?
This podcast.
And
I think that
I step on so many lines.
No, God, that's a big catalog.
The first one you can think of.
The dumbest thing I've ever done. What individual thing, like one particular thing, like fork in the road?
Yeah, sure, that works. Or it could be just something you said in a response to a question like this.
The dumbest thing I've ever responded with. Android 1, bring my book. You know what? I think this is going to sound terribly new agey and weird, but the dumbest thing I've ever done, I consistently do, and I've been doing forever, is I do not believe in myself. I just don't. And so I'm constantly undermining myself and putting myself in like second or third place to all the things around me. And because of that, I don't allow myself to reach the potential I want, or do the things I want, or share what I want. I do not take advantage of the very lucky position that I'm in to be able to do the things that I do, because I'm afraid of how I do them and what I do, and I'm afraid of failing at those things. So the dumbest thing I do is just to consistently question and undermine myself, and that's kind of it. It was a bit existential. Wow. So
no, I love that. I feel like that's an answer that actually a lot of people could use to share, including at least one of our hosts. I'm speaking for myself, Alan, not you. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, a lot of artistic and creative and particularly intelligent people that I meet. They really don't treat themselves with respect, and then subsequently other people won't treat you with respect either. You teach people how you want to be treated, and if you treat yourself and you don't believe in yourself, I'm not saying being arrogant, I'm not saying being a prick, but like if you don't get out there and be like, no, I'm good enough to be here, and then you're also never going to achieve what you could achieve. Because say what you want about Van Gogh, but he had no idea he was insane. He was just doing what he did, and he created beautiful work, and then he shot himself. So it's not always the best, but find something in the middle.
There you go.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you know a lot of comedians through your career, but I feel like I don't think I heard of you until Brido's show. Were you a guest on Mike Bridenstine's podcast, Hunk?
A couple times. Yeah, I love Brido. He's great. He's the best.
One of the things I'd heard from him was no one's ever going to say no to you in this game but you. Mm-hmm. Like, there are gatekeepers because there's maybe people that like have like an or a stage or something in that regard, but ultimately you can just go somewhere else because no one's going to say no to you doing what you want to be doing but you. and I have to tell myself all that all the fucking time. Like,
that is incredibly true. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, the problem with being introspective and being aware of yourself, like there's a lot of benefits of being self-aware, and it makes you a better human and everything. But the problem with that is if you go down that rabbit hole too much, you start pulling on threads that most people just ignore. And because they ignore those threads, they're able to do things that I see some people as superhuman. I have a friend who will like send food back. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? And he's like, it wasn't what I wanted. And I was like, but you just see, I mean, you just take it then. He goes, why would you do that? And I go, I don't know. Like, I'm just like, and then I get on stage and tell jokes for a living. So I see where there might be an issue there. But like, it's like, but that goes all the way back to what we were saying off the top about insecurity and self.
I'm glad that's been able to be a through line through this. I was unintentional.
Yeah.
So I think that was
Very
cool. I just slowly but surely try and find the one thing. That's all I do with my stand-up is just try and find one way to make it make sense, and then people think I did my job. That's all it is.
Well done. Seasoned pro.
Yes, nice
I do. Okay, I am afraid if I don't ask you this now, I'll forget. Can you just, for the beginning of the show, I'll put this in as a bumper. Can you give me this is Simon King, or hi, I'm Simon King, however you want to say that, and then I never listened to None Taken, and whatever kind of attitude you want to give it.
Okay. All right. This is Simon King. No, you haven't heard of me, and I never listen to None Taken.
Can I ask for one request? And I feel really weird asking this.
That was great, though.
That was perfect. Yeah. Feel free to say no. Can Robin Williams come in and say that he doesn't None Taken?
Or I'll give you better than that. Hang on a second. I got a few. I'm not going to say the names because you don't need to have the names because I'm about to do some. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I never listen to None Taken. Why would I? Okay. Dude, why the fuck would I listen to None Taken? What the fuck is that? Whoa, why would I listen to None Taken? Wow, listen to my podcast. What are you doing? There you go.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Keep going for a bit.
Brilliant.
Yeah. We've got a bunch of bumpers now. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then that way, if I don't say their name, then I can't be stealing. Well,
that was smart of you. I appreciate that. That keeps us all safe. Oh, Alan, Billy Joel. Remember yesterday when I was trying to remember the guy that drinks and drives from Long Island? Yeah. Sorry, that just came back to me. We were thinking of celebrities.
All right.
Yeah, it was a conversation from yesterday. That was rude. Okay, I have a game that I'd like to play. Let's go out on our favorite game. We only save this for when we have guests. So the game is called, are you ready? Listeners, I wonder if you're knowing what we're going to do because we change the game up every week. Carp or Narp?
The game sweeping America.
Carp or Narp? So every week when we choose to, I bring out 3 fish names, and 2 of them are not carps, and you have to identify the carp.
Okay.
And you can Google, but only images.
Yeah, you can Google image them, but don't look at like whether it's a carp. Don't search, is it a carp? But feel free to look at an image because there are telltale signs of what a carp looks like. And while all of these look close to carp,
raw dogging this.
Okay,
let's go.
Well, speaking of raw dogging,
I'm not looking at any pictures of carps. I don't want that on my search history. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Fair point.
So, speaking of raw dogging it, let's start off with a white sucker.
Oh,
we have a white sucker. We have megalobrama, a white sucker, and a megalobrama, and a gizzard shad.
Gizzard shad.
It's shad. S-H-A-D.
Shad. Okay.
Yeah. Not
white sucker.
White sucker. Megalobrama. No H, just B-R-A-M-A. If it's not Brahma like Indian.
Okay.
Brahma. And then was it gizzard shad?
Gizzard shad, yeah.
Gizzard shad. I loved gizzard shad when they opened for Smash Mouth in '99. And they were
Oh man, you can't see that act anymore. That's a good show, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, that's one for the ages. Who knew that guy would have drunk himself to death? Anyway, people yelling, just people yelling, "Hey now" for the rest of your life. Just go to the grocery store. Hey now, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know which one it is. I think.
Okay,
I
which
think,
one?
I think the carp is white sucker.
Alan?
Okay. I think it's the second one. What was it?
Megalobrahma.
Megalobrahma. I'm gonna go with Megalobrahma.
I fucking hate it when Alan wins.
Yeah.
I gotta put a point down in his column, and someday he'll cash for a prize.
You know who's the white sucker?
Yeah, thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon King.
Simon King.
Yeah. Hey, guys, thank you so much, man. This was a lot
This was a blast. This is a blast.
Thank
man.
you.
Thanks
I
for
had a
coming on.
great time. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for having me on. You guys are super fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
That's
it.
great. Hey,
Great
are you? We'll end it. That'll be the show. I meant to ask you this. I even wrote it down. Are you coming to Nashville on your tour?
No, not anytime soon. So what happened is during the COVID, my American papers lapsed, and I didn't reboot them because the border was closed. And so I'm working on doing that now, but it takes. I mean, it takes however long it takes. So I'm hoping to. I really want to come to Nashville, but
it's a shitty city for comedy, man. We have one Zanies, and we get a lot of the same acts through there all the time. I don't mean to bitch about it too much, but yeah, I'm like, nope. But music, I can't complain. There's nothing but live music here, so you know.
Well, if you got a punk bar that seats about 100, that's usually where you'll find me. So that's usually where I don't tend to do comedy clubs. I haven't really done comedy clubs in about 15 years. So I just tend to stanhope it and find my own little rooms and yell at people. There ain't a lot of us, but we're on the same level of drunk most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
That's why your audience are so on board, huh? Yeah, that's
yeah. There's not a lot of us, but we're I'm niche, but I'm a friendly niche. Right?
Yes. Well, thanks again, man. You have a good rest of your night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You too. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
All right, dude.
I'm gonna stop the recording. Bye, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tell your friends about us.
Yes, talk to your friends. Tell them about None Takens.
Yeah.
One more button.